Welcome to another episode of the Trivia Power Hour Gaming, the show where we look at gaming secrets, Easter eggs, facts, and trivia you want to know about. If you know of any more trivia, or have a game, series, or developer you want me to cover, let me know in the comments. Like the video, and consider subscribing. Also, make sure to stick around to the end, for I'll announce what the focus of the next episode will be. But, for now, let's get right into the trivia. Today, we're looking at the cult classic crime drama action series, Yakuza, also known as Ryuga Gotoku in Japan, meaning like a dragon. Yakuza 1 producer Toshihiro Nagoshi had to go to great lengths to convince Sega to get the game made. Sega wasn't interested in a more adult-oriented game that would not only ignore a huge audience of younger gamers, but also be a big risk overseas due to it being so steeped in Japanese culture. Nagoshi had already made a couple hits, such as Daytona USA and Super Monkey Ball, but it wasn't until he said he would quit the industry altogether if the game wasn't a success that Sega finally agreed. To try and make up for this, Sega got big-name actors for the Western localization, such as Mark Hamill, Michael Rosenbaum, Michael Madsen, Eliza Dushku, and Rachel Leigh Cook. The game was a far greater success in Japan than anyone anticipated. Looking back on the game's 10-year anniversary, Nagoshi stated, "No one could predict how it would go. When we did an in-house sales estimate at the time, the highest figure was 70,000 units. The lowest was 20,000. No one said it would sell around 300,000. Well, I guess that you take something negatively when you see it for the first time, so I didn't really pay much attention to the figure itself. However, when I learned that the first press had been less than 100,000 units, I thought it was dead in the water. But it began to sell more quickly than we had projected, and as a result, including the best version, we surpassed 1 million copies. I couldn't help but shed a tear." Kevin Frayne, the localization producer, spoke about the poor marketing, specifically regarding how the first trailer was constructed using an old scratch track, an unfinished soundtrack. This made the rounds fairly quickly across gaming fan sites, highlighting what was considered poor quality, but this trailer actually wasn't at all representative of the voice quality of the finished product. The damage had already been done, though, for the most part, and so a lot of fans probably still don't realize that. Japan also benefited from having plenty of marketing deals integrated into the game, such as featuring Don Quixote store and product placement such as Boss Coffee. The series name in Japan, Ryuga Gotoku, translates to like a dragon, and was thought up by series creator Nagoshi. Many Japanese titles directly translated in English sound odd, but apparently the name is a little odd in Japanese as well. Nagoshi thought that the image of dragons was what he wanted players to have when playing the game, and to get a sense of the strength and manliness of the main character Kiryu. When it came time to localize Yakuza 2, Kevin Frayne was asked why the game would only be released with English subtitles and no dub like the first game. When Yakuza was released in the US without a Japanese voice track, there was actually a significant fan outcry. Obviously, this is a very Japanese game, set in Japan and dealing heavily with Japanese culture, and quite a lot of people thought that not having the original Japanese dialogue affected the game's sense of authenticity. We definitely took that fan reaction into account when making the ultimate decision to go ahead with the Japanese voice track for Yakuza 2. Yakuza 2 would go on to be the third best-selling PS2 game in 2006, and reached total lifetime sales of around 830,000 copies in Japan alone. There are a lot of rumors about some developers, and even Sega as a whole, having ties with the actual Yakuza. Whether or not this is true will probably never be confirmed, but the Yakuza are absolutely aware of the series, with a few real members playing Yakuza 3 to see how accurate it was to real life. They commented on everything from how realistic the environment is, how accurate the character's clothing is for their rank, and how unrealistic and dangerous it would be for someone to actually get into so many fights. One particularly interesting exchange between Yakuza members was, "Kiryu is the way Yakuza used to be. We kept the streets clean. People liked us. We didn't bother ordinary citizens. We respected our bosses. Now, guys like that only exist in video games. I don't know any ex-Yakuza running orphanages. There was one a few years ago. A good guy. You sure it wasn't just a tax shelter?" Sure it was a tax shelter, but he ran it like a legitimate thing, you know? In the end, they enjoyed the game and thought it shed a favorable light on the Yakuza. However, they were not at all pleased when they learned that the US version had mahjong, the sexual massage parlor, and hostesses clubs removed from the game, stating, "I feel sorry for the people who bought the American version. Sega USA sucks." Jake Adelstein, author of Tokyo Vice and an expert on the Yakuza, was brought into IGN to take a look at Yakuza 4 in a similar fashion. Much like the actual Yakuza reviewing Yakuza 3, he agreed how unrealistic it would be for Yakuza to fight in the street, citing how in real life, and in the game as well, there are security cameras set up everywhere. An even bigger reason, however, would be that fighting on the streets of the entertainment district, which is mostly controlled by the Yakuza, would drive people, and thus their business, away. Jake suspects that the scene with Saejima performing the hit at the ramen shop may be based on a real-life incident where one member of a gang ambushed a group from a rival gang in a snack bar, killing 3, injuring many others, and then later tracking down and killing a gang boss in a hospital. The most unrealistic aspect of that scene, though, was that most Yakuza would be terrible shots with firearms, due to the strict regulations of guns in Japan, preventing even the Yakuza from being able to practice with them. Yakuza 6, the most recent mainline game in the series to date, has a lot of quirky Easter eggs that fit in perfectly with the often bizarre and referential tone of the series' sub-stories. One series of Easter eggs involves Kiryu finding photographs of characters who died in previous games around the map. Once collected, if you take a selfie in that spot, the ghost of that character will appear in the picture when you look back at it. A second Easter egg can be accessed during the Premium Adventure, or New Game Plus mode. If you buy the UFO Finder, you can actually spot UFOs in 2 separate locations in the game, one in Kamurocho and the other in Onomichi. There are a ton of sub-stories that make references to other media, specifically films, including The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, RoboCop, and Freaky Friday. Another features a real-life figure, Paul Lim, who is a real-life darts player who set the record as being the first person to get a night dart finish in the World Embassy Championship. For those unfamiliar as darts, as I am, it is basically the equivalent of bowling a perfect 300. Takeshi Kitano, better known as Beat Takeshi, is the most obvious character in the game who is played by a famous actor, but there were others that most Western players probably didn't even recognize as being based on real people. Several New Japan Pro wrestlers portrayed versions of themselves in the game, such as Hiroshi Tanahashi, Hiroyoshi Tenzen, Kazuchika Okada, Satoshi Kojima, Tetsuya Naito, and Toru Yano. Yakuza 6 was also cancelled just one day before it was set to release in South Korea. The only explanation given was that this was due to the game including several sensitive topics, leading to a lot of speculation and theories as to why this was the case, considering there was no issues releasing any of the previous games in that region. While technically not a Yakuza game, the recently released Judgment does exist in the Yakuza universe, and was created by the same team. The game's sales were halted by Sega in 2019, before it was released in the West, due to the actor who played the character of Kyohei Hamura getting arrested for drug use. Pierre Taki, the actor and musician, was removed from the Western version of the game, but it wasn't just his involvement in the Judgment that was affected. He would also be replaced as the voice of Olaf in the Japanese dub of Frozen 2, a role he played in the first film, as well as being patched out of Kingdom Hearts 3 for that same role. Thanks for watching this episode of the Trivia Power Hour Gaming. Next episode, we'll be taking a look at the Final Fantasy series, so subscribe to make sure you don't miss it. In the meantime, you can check out some of my other videos you may have missed for more gaming trivia I know you'll like.